Hey, welcome back, everyone. It's me, Mr. 4K Upscaler. I want to go more in depth with Apple 4K TV and talk about many different features that, yet again, makes this $200 device or $180 device, depending which one you go with, 32 or 64. I think honestly, 32 gig is all you need, but if you want to go with that extra $40, go with the 64 gig. Either way, it's $200, $220, $212. I'm sorry, and I personally think it's worth it. And I'm gonna go through some of the features here again to convince you as to why you should go ahead and have this device. Remember, you're paying $200 for it, okay? And considering what you're getting for that $200, it definitely has a value. Especially if you are a 4K buff and you're a 4K enthusiast and you have a high-end 4K TV with Dolby Vision and all of this other stuff, including Hyperlog Gamma and HDR10 and Advanced HDR from Technicolor, etc., etc. If you have one of those high-end elite TVs, B7, C7, those types of TVs, then yeah, uh, there is no reason for you not to purchase it. You should definitely purchase it. Now I'm going to go through this and I'll tell you why. Here I am now on the formats. I'm on the menu, as you can see right here. Currently, I'm on the 4K Dolby Vision 60 Hertz because my input supports that 60 Hertz. But depending on what type of TV you have, please do check. This is really important stuff, and I don't think people nearly enough check on this. Before you purchase Apple 4K TV, you need to do some research, you need to do some homework, and you need to do your homework and find out what exactly is your TV capable of. All right. Well, the first homework you should have done is you should have bought a really good TV and get all the accolades. I highly recommend that you go with C7 if you can, or this holiday season go with a C7 for $2,000 or $2,200, depending on how much they're gonna cut. If they cut to $2,000, then yeah, definitely you want to go with it. Which I doubt they will do that. Probably 2,200. That's what I'm guessing. Plus tax 2,300. But if you can get it cheaper, that's good. But C7 is definitely the total package deal in terms of 4K television right now, in time of this recording. Okay, 2017 October. Um, so as you can see, right now my TV supports Dolby Vision and HDR10. Okay, and not all of the HDMI inputs support Dolby Vision and HDR10. Only two inputs, HDMI 1 and HDMI 2, support Dolby Vision. The third HDMI input only supports HDR10, which is a static metadata. So only two of those 2.0 HDMI inputs support dynamic metadata, which is Dolby Vision. So you got to make sure when you're connecting your cables, you got to make sure that your HDMI inputs are the ones that will support Dolby Vision 60 Hertz. Okay, some HDMI inputs on some TVs only support 4K 30 Hertz. Some support 50 Hertz. You have to find the one that supports 60 Hertz 4K. So this is why I tell people, when you're buying a cheap 4K TV, you have to look and see what it has on there. Okay, because the whole idea is that you find the best possible 4K TV with all the good features built into it. And this TCL definitely has those features. It definitely packs Dolby Vision on two HDMIs and HDR10 on the third HDMI. Now, all three HDMI inputs support HDR. However, only two HDMIs support Dolby Vision 60 Hertz. All right. And you guys can look into that yourself and you will see what I'm talking about. If you go to the HDMI port where it says ARC, which is for the return signal for the home theater, that one doesn't support Dolby Vision. That one only supports HDR10, which is static metadata. Okay? Now let's go back to Apple TV. Now, this is what's so great about Apple 4K TV. It is fully unlocked when it comes to HDR formats. They really want to give you as much what's the word I'm trying to use? As much variety as possible. That's the word I'm looking for, variety. And you can see that on the formats right here. Here's my controller right here, and you can see that all these formats. They give you Dolby Vision 60 Hertz. They give you HDR 60 Hertz. They give you even 4K standard DR 60 Hertz. And they also give you a 1080p Dolby Vision. So if you don't want to use 4K Dolby Vision, if you don't want to upscale those movies to 4K, that's fine. You can still use a 1080p Dolby Vision. You can select that as well. So they're giving you two different types of Dolby Vision formats. And you're going to ask, well, how are they able to do this? How could they do this? The reason they can do this because inside that Apple 4K TV, they have dynamic metadata that's unlocked and also static metadata that will compress even non-HDR signals into HDR signals, okay? And that's what the Apple 4K TV does better than anybody. And they're the only device they're doing this currently, right now, at the moment. No one else is doing this except Apple, okay? Again, they give you 1080p HDR if you want, which is static metadata. And also they give you 1080p SDR if you want. So they're giving everyone a different options here. Okay, and I think that's cool. Even for those of you who have a 50 hertz input, let's say maybe your TV only supports 50 hertz, it's an older model of Dolby Vision, well, guess what? You can use it as well. But currently right here, I'm only going to use a 60 hertz Dolby Vision. I'm going to select that. And then I'm going to wait and click OK. Now we're on the Dolby Vision 60 hertz. Now, if you still want to find out whether or not you are there, you can also use your remote control. And you can click. And there it is. You will see Dolby Vision. Now, just ignore this PlayStation 4 Pro. That's something that I have put on the input for my PlayStation 4 Pro, so that way I can remember on which input is my console connected to. You can always rename that. You can change it. I'm just using this for a demo purposes, just to show you. And calibration, it's something that I haven't tried, but actually I might try over here. This is another good way to calibrate your Apple 4K TV and use the settings. Now, people have been asking me this a lot. People always said, well, should I really go with the brighter? Well, considering that it's Dolby Vision, you should definitely use the brighter. You see a picture mode here, it's on dark, but I would keep it on bright. And a lot of people said, well, what if you're sitting close to a TV? Doesn't matter. Even if you're sitting, let's say 3.5, 4 feet away from the TV, you should still have Dolby Vision and HDR on brighter and bright. Especially since this TV, this TCL TV, only has like close to 700 nits of peak brightness, which is standard, but it's nowhere near enough needed for the Dolby Vision to be taking a full advantage. Okay, so you definitely want to keep everything here on bright. You want to keep that Dolby Vision bright and the TV brightness brighter. Okay, because that's the whole purpose of Dolby Vision, is to be brighter, to see more detail in the shadow areas, to see more detail in the color. Now, remember that. This is what you need to have. Now, in terms of picture size, I like to use it on automatic. Keep it on automatic. Auto, it's always something I prefer. So keep it on automatic, picture size. And another thing you also want to make sure that you keep on at all time is right here. Let me show you. Go to advanced picture settings, local dimming always has to be at high. And that's the one accolade from Apple 4K TV. I mean, that's the one, I'm sorry, that's the one accolade from TCL TV, Dolby Vision TCL TV, that is the high local dimming zones. It has about 72, which is pretty darn good for a 55-inch TV, okay? Meaning the deep dark levels will be, you will benefit so much on HDR and Dolby Vision from those deep dark levels than opposite on, let's say, Samsung KS8000. But however, Samsung KS8000 has that full wide color gamut of quantum nanodot cells and that 1400 plus peak brightness nits that will definitely give that brighter detail. However, here you will benefit from full array local dimming. You will benefit from deep dark levels. Now, they're not going to be OLED deep dark levels, but they're going to be pretty darn good for an LCD LED TV. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and let's go continue to advanced picture settings. Backlit and contrast, it's always going to be like this. Remember, doesn't matter what TV you're using. I don't care if you're using OLED. I don't care if you're using QLED. I don't care what type of brand of panel made TV are you using, whether it's OLED or QLED or LED. Doesn't matter. Hold on. You're always going to have this like this. Contrast is going to be maximum, and backlit is going to be maximum. Okay? And brightness is going to be 50. So backlit and contrast is always going to be the maximum. And don't worry. Some people say, but my OLED backlit, it's all the way to the maximum. That's okay. That's because it's switching to a static metadata or dynamic metadata. It's using HDR. Now, if you are using non-HDR format and you have your OLED backlit all the way high, your OLED light all the way high, then they don't have the backlit, it's just the OLED light. If you use your OLED light all the way high, then you shouldn't be doing that if you're watching non-HDR formats. If you're watching HDR formats, that's okay. You can use that. All right. So remember, like I said, this will always be like this. Backlit or on OLED will be OLED light will be maximum and contrast will be maximum. So these two will always be like this. And the brightness will always be at 50 because you already have HDR format. You are already running a good deep dark levels. You don't need to mess around with the brightness, okay? You want to leave the brightness at 50. There is no reason for you to mess around with the brightness. Leave the brightness at 50 because you already have HDR format running on it. You already have Dolby Vision format running on it, which is a dynamic metadata and static metadata. So you really don't need to mess around with these three. Leave these three alone. It's not just me that's going to tell you this. Everyone will tell you this, that you need to leave those three on like this. If you want to experience HDR, leave them on like that. Now, sharpness is something you can move around if you want, depending on from where you're sitting. I think sharpness at 20, it's a perfect threshold for this TV because I like to have a little bit of that clarity detail. So 20, I would leave it at 20, honestly. Unless you got a big giant size TV that's like 78 inch, then you can move sharpness to 0 because you don't want those outline artifacts to show up. So you can leave that at 0. But if you have a 55 inch, 20 is fine. You can leave that at 20. Color, it's at 45. This is a threshold. You can leave it at 45. But since we are using a Dolby Vision and HDR, you could leave it up a little bit to, like, let's say 50. Me personally, I would leave it at 55. I always felt like leaving it at 55, it really gives me that color that I need on Dolby Vision. Now, color temperature, I have found out that warm it's better. I used to go on a balance, but I have found out keeping the color at warm is just better for Dolby Vision in general, you know. And it's not gonna have too much of that sepia yellow feel to it. It's still there, but it's not to the point where it's like everything's orange, okay? You can still see here, you can see the colors on these skyscrapers in Dubai. All right, and there's that big famous giant building there, that scraper where Tom Cruise used to climb. It wasn't just him, there was a bunch of other people. They did it. But you can see how every and each color here, it's represented perfectly. So that's the way I would use it for the Dolby Vision. And it looks great, you know, but Dolby Vision, it's really going to depend, you know, to truly appreciate Apple 4K TV, it's going to depend on what type of TV do you have to feed it on. Just like when you buy Oppo 203. If you buy Oppo 203 and you're feeding it, let's say, this television or some other $400, $500 4K television, you're still going to get that 4K, but you're not going to appreciate exactly what that 4K player can do, okay? If you want to truly appreciate what the Oppo 203 can do, then you want to get the OLED. You know, the OLED will do that for you, like C7, B7. I prefer C7. Samsung KS8000, you're still going to see some benefits because of that high peak brightness nits that it has, and of course nano crystal quantum dot technology of wide color gamut that'll truly help as well. But OLED will definitely take full advantage of that Oppo 203, and you are going to benefiting from it. Same thing with the Apple 4K TV. Apple 4K TV will look the best on a high-end TV. If you got a QLED, like a high-end QLED TV, then yes. If you got a C7 65-inch, then that Apple 4K TV will look much, much better. Okay, so it all really varies and depends on what sort of TV are you using. But even on this TV, even on TCL P55 605 TV, you still get to enjoy Dolby Vision and you get to enjoy HDR. But here's what's so cool and unique. I don't know if you guys watched my previous video. This is what's so unique and cool about Apple 4K TV, and they're the only ones that are doing this. You always have your Dolby Vision 4K 60 Hz signal on at all times. At all times. The reason you have it at all times, it's because it's a unlocked dynamic metadata that it's always on. Once you switch it to dynamic metadata, it is always on. On other devices, you have to actually watch a Dolby Vision movie or Dolby Vision program in order for dynamic metadata to turn on. Here, dynamic metadata, it's always processing. Whether you're watching your HBO Go or your Stars or whatever content you're watching on your Apple 4K TV, this dynamic metadata, Dolby Vision, it's always going to be on at all times. Okay? And that's the one unique feature about Apple 4K TV. So let's go back to advanced picture settings. Remember, you want to have the Dolby Vision on a bright mode. Keep it on a bright, okay? And you want to make sure that your local dimming is set to high. This, you leave it like this. You never mess around with this. Backlit, contrast, brightness, always like this. Sharpness, I personally like to keep it at 20. Because the 55-inch TV, if it was a bigger TV, I would kept it at 0. But since it's a 55-inch, I like to keep it at 20. Give me a little bit more of that outline. Color, I think this is really good. It's just 5 clicks. above the threshold. Okay, see the little threshold right there, the little line right there. So it's just above the threshold. So I like to keep it at 20, and then of course color above the threshold at 55, which is 5 clicks up. So this is what I recommend. I recommend sharpness at 20 and color at 55, which is 5 clicks up, a little bit more. Color temperature, warm. Honestly, it's first of all, the warm, it's better for your eyes. That blue UV light is dangerous for your eyes. It can give you migraine, headache. It can make you vomit. It can affect your brain and all sorts of different things. Do some research on it and you'll find out. Keep it at warm. Keep the color temperature at warm. And of course, local dimming at high. And also another thing that's very important is the, which I forgot to mention, the TV brightness, keep it up brighter, because you want to take the full advantage of the Dolby Vision. Okay, so now that we have done that, now let's move on. Let's exit. Let's talk about surround sound. Currently, right now, Apple 4K TV only has Dolby Digital 5.1. Okay, that's all they have right now. Dolby Digital 5.1. I leave it at the 5.1, or you can leave it at best quality available. It's up to you. What do you want to do? If you are using a home theater, or if you're using a sound bar that supports Dolby Digital 5.1, then I suggest you leave it at Dolby Digital 5.1. This is another thing that I would, all of these filters, you can use them on, but I would turn them off. All they're gonna do is they're gonna interfere with the mixer of the movie. So you don't want to do that. Then you're gonna lose that experience. Okay, I would turn all of these filters off. I would leave it on Dolby Digital 5.1, so that way you can take the advantage of surround sound and enjoy it on the Apple 4K TV. Now, are they gonna have Dolby Atmos in the future? I heard a rumor that they're looking to do that in the future. I mean, they already have a partnership with Dolby, so I don't see a reason why they wouldn't implement Dolby Atmos. And this device is more than capable of handling Dolby Atmos, so I can see that in the future for sure. All right, so let's go back to Spider-Man Homecoming. I'm going to go ahead and select a couple of scenes here. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to show you a little bit how it looks in Dolby Vision since we're here. I believe Baby Driver, it's in Dolby Vision as well. Let me see. I'm not sure. Yeah, it is in Dolby Vision. It's only $20, which is pretty cool. Then you have John Wick 2, which is also in Dolby Vision, as far as I know. Yep. So I'm going to quickly go to Spider-Man Homecoming. I'm going to click on it. And I'm going to play it. I'm going to check some scenes really quick. Now, this is this. It's like it almost looks like a 4K Blu-ray version where you get to select the scenes, go through the scenes and stuff like that. I'm going to go right over here on one of the scenes right here. And we'll check it really quick. I'm trying to find a really good scene right here in the movie. And of course right here you can see just how beautiful the Dolby Vision looks. You can see I believe this is New York. I'm not sure. It could be New York. And you can see just how beautifully everything it's presented. Natural light from the sunset. I guess I can show you a short little clip here. Just a little tiny short little clip right here, and you see how beautiful it looks in Dolby Vision. Now there's some stuff here. There's CGI and a green screen, obviously, because they're not gonna have this actor sit on like the ledge of some skyscraper, obviously they're not going to have him fall down. It's too much of a risk. So this is probably CGI green screen, but still, even with the CGI green screen, it still looks great on this 4K Dolby Vision version of a movie. It just looks more natural right here. Like when you look at his costume, and just look at this detail here that you see. Now, when we talk about peak brightness, people need to understand what HDR and Dolby Vision does. It gives you a detail in the dark areas, in the shadows. It gives you the detail in the reflection, and also it enhances the colors, so the colors look as natural as they would in a real life environment. And that's what Dolby Vision does here. Okay. And even here, just look at the shadow of that building over here and look at the detail that you get to see. It's almost like a three-dimensional feel, and that's what the Dolby Vision does. Now, this is not even the full potential of what Dolby Vision can do. Okay, so this is not even full potential. The full potential of what Dolby Vision could do, it's even brighter. It's even 20 times more brighter with colors. Now imagine if I had a full-fledged Dolby Vision, like 8,000 nits, 10,000 nits, kind of like a 78, 82-inch kind of a TV. And just imagine the type of detail you would see here. It would be even more detailed. Now, there's another feature that this thing has. It's called a double tap zoom in. I don't like it because you lose the original ratio of the picture. You see, now you don't get to see Robert Downey Jr. You losing half of the buildings here. You're losing half of his back of a head and the shoulder. It's just not good. It's just not good. Okay, I mean, you can still watch it like this, but I don't recommend that you do. It's better if you zoom out, because when you zoom out, you get more detail and more range on the ratio. And here's another great scene right here on a Spider-Man Homecoming. Just look at the detail on his costume. That's from the Dolby Vision. This is where Dolby Vision color pops. And also, it's really good to use that warm color. Remember, I left the warm color on to give me more of that 2020 temperature and detail that I need. And it's good. Warm color is good for you, for your eyes, and it's also good for the TV as well. But Dolby Vision, even though, here's what I want to say about Dolby Vision. Even though this is not a true Dolby Vision demo of what it can do, but still, Dolby Vision will compress all of that data and will implement it into this TV. So you're still going to have much better, brighter scenes and brighter colors than HDR10 static metadata. Okay? All right, so that's really important to know. And just look how beautifully it looks here. This is a great example right here. I know this was shot in the studio lot somewhere out there in Burbank, California, or anywhere out there in the Hollywood lot. I understand, but still, Dolby Vision brings this naturally, and it looks natural. Like right here, here's a great example. Even here, look at right here, for example. Look at that peak brightness of Dolby Vision right there. Okay. So, and this is Apple 4K TV. So for $200, you really are getting a almost near physical media 4K UHD Blu-ray quality. If I was to put a HDR version, Dolby version on a 4K UHD disc next to the Apple 4K TV, you wouldn't be able to tell a difference. Honestly, you wouldn't be able to tell a difference. That's how good it looks. There it is right there. Not to mention the fact that you're not paying a full price. You're not paying $30 for a 4K Dolby Vision movie or HDR movie. You're paying $20. And in some instances, it's $14. Some of them, they're $12. Like Blade Runner Dolby Vision is like $12, now moved up to $14. And that's a great deal. You're getting a lot of movies for half a price on Apple 4K TV, and you're not going to find it anywhere else. Okay? Just like you're not going to find non-stop Dolby Vision dynamic metadata being turned on. Just like you're not going to find anywhere else non-stop high dynamic range static metadata being turned on at all times. So there is a lot to like about Apple 4K TV. Now, if you're not into Apple iTunes ecosystem, then I understand why you are hesitant to jump in and buy Apple 4K TV. But if you are into Apple ecosystem, then definitely, yes, no-brainer. But even if you're not into Apple iTunes ecosystem, this should be more than enough of a reason for you to jump in, because you're going to get a lot of good deals, affordable deals on movies, Dolby Vision and HDR movies. So something to think about. Plus, all of the existing programs and movies will look great on upscale to 4K and compressed to HDR and Dolby Vision. Remember, static metadata and dynamic metadata here are always active. All right, so I don't know what else to say other than I think I covered pretty much everything there's to cover about the Apple 4K TV. I will go through some more stuff on Apple 4K TV in terms of comparing some movies, Dolby Vision movies and whatnot. We'll do that as well. But other than that, hopefully this video was helpful. And I highly recommend Apple 4K TV. I can't recommend more than enough than I already have recommended. It's highly recommended that you go pick it up, man. It's definitely worth it for $200. Can't go wrong. Thank you, guys. Thank you for watching.